What is your name?
¿Cuál es su nombre?
Mi nombre es Jonathan Álvarez Márquez.
And where were you born?
¿Dónde naciste?
En México, en Puebla.
¿Puebla?
¿Puebla? Sí, soy de Puebla.
Puebla. What was your life like growing up?
¿Cómo fue tu vida cuando estabas creciendo?
Oh, pues, puro estudio y trabajo. Sí, estudiaba y trabajaba desde chico.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cuéntanos un poquito de ti. ¿Qué haces? ¿Qué te gusta?
Oh, pues, yo me gusta mucho la música, el rap. Sí, desde que era pequeño me llamó mucho la atención. Cuando escuchaba música, me llamó más la atención el rap. Y pues ahora es lo que yo quiero hacer, cantar.
How old were you when you started making music?
¿Cuántos años tuviste cuando te empezaste a hacer música?
20 años, a los 20 años.
How old was it? 20?
20 years old.
Oh, okay.
¿Cuántos años tienes ahorita?
Ahorita tengo 20.
Okay, she's
How-
20 now.
Okay. So who are some of your inspirations?
¿Quiénes son tus inspiraciones? ¿Quiénes son tus inspiraciones
Oh, pues,
en la música?
Mi familia y para...
¿Tu familia? ¿No hay nadie famoso que te inspira o nomás tu familia?
Sí, mi familia nada más. Así.
His family's his inspiration. Gotcha. Okay. What do you hope to accomplish with your music?
¿Qué quieres lograr con tu música?
Pues solo lo que quiero pues es que oigan lo que siento al escribir mi música. Sí, es como yo más me relajo, como que expreso todo lo que siento. Sí, quiero pues que lo escuchen. Sí.
What is your favorite song you wrote and why?
¿Cuál es tu canción favorita que escribiste y por qué?
Mi canción favorita es la canción se llama Mi Vida. Y me gusta esa porque pues ahí me expreso cómo fue sucediendo y pues la gente que me decía que yo no podía y pues que ahora lo estoy logrando.
¿Vas a cantar esa ahora?
Sí, lo voy a cantar.
Ok.
Can you do a rap for us?
¿Puedes cantar algo ahorita, un rap por cortito nomás para que él pueda ver?
Freestyle or something?
Ah, ok, sí, pongo la canción.
Si quieres, sí.
Something
He's gonna
written.
put music.
Huh?
He's gonna put
Oh,
music.
yeah, please. Yeah,
¿Puedo?
yeah.
Sí.
Esta es una que voy a cantar ahorita.
Yeah, please.
He's gonna sing this one tonight.
Nice.
Sí, mi nombre artístico es el JonyBoy. Sigo siendo el morro que querían humillar y míreme ahora quien lo iba a pensar, que la boca les iba a callar, que estoy en el estudio listo para grabar a todos los habladores que pensaron que no lo iba a lograr. Les levanto el dedo y vean a dónde puedo llegar, porque no me olvido de lo que tuve que pasar, de que toda esa gente me fuera a señalar, que qué vergas hacen de mí, nada esperarán. Yo no confiaba en nadie porque una patada por la espalda te dan. Dicen ser de calle, solo risa me dan. Soy el JonyBoy y también su papá.
Yeah. Nice. I like that, bro. Nice. Good stuff. Gracias. Ask him if he has any social media that he wants to promote.
¿Quieres que
Instagram or like.
tienes tu
Oh,
Instagram
sí,
o Facebook? No, que lo digas
No,
ahí cuando se haga la entrevista.
Mi Instagram es JonyBoy2118.
2118? 2118. JonyBoy 2118. JonyBoy 2118. Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Okay,
Peace, man.
This young man puts it down in the street vending business, let me tell you. And he's in the house, he's an up-and-coming talent. Shout out to my boy Ethan Alex Enamorado that supports the homie, as well as yours truly, Groove, Rob G as well. He's gonna rap in Spanish. Do you guys speak Spanish right here? No? A little bit? No? You understand the beat at least? Okay, cool. This guy is gonna rap in Spanish, and I want everybody in the house to make some noise for my boy, JonyBoy. Make some noise for this young man right here. Come on, make some noise.
JonyBoy.
Buenas noches, ¿cómo
Puebla.
Yes, come on, JonyBoy.
pinche JonyBoy.
Get it, dog. Get it, dog.
Al micro, ¿no?
Ah.
Vida que he llevado, nacido en la masacre. Me pasaba encerrado, me sentía atrapado. No sabía qué hacer, estudiaba y trabajaba para poder comer. Y al cumplir los 16 supe que quería ser rapero y la familia enorgullecer. La mente positiva siempre tuve que tener. Si yo no creo en mí, entonces ¿quién más lo va a hacer? Presión y desamor, eso lo superé. Y en la música un desahogo me encontré. A través del tiempo pude comprender que el camino no es algo lo que hay que recorrer. Solo metas y sueños debes de poner, porque loco, solo en ti debes de creer. Escucha lo que relato de mi vida son relatos. Tú que sabes de tus dedos si nunca estuviste en mi zapato. Escucha lo que relato de mi vida son relatos. Tú que sabes de tristeza si nunca estuviste en mi zapato.
Thank you for tuning in to Dusty Vision TV. Please hit that like button if you have not already. And if this is your first time joining the channel and you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, you just might appreciate this bonus clip I'm about to play for you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, on the line, I have Louie from People Making Progress. What up, man?
What's going on, family? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Appreciate you joining the program, dude.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Most def. Curating knowledge, highlighting action, celebrating progress are just a few of the things that People Making Progress represents. But we're going to talk about that in a little while. But I want to get to know a little bit about Louie, man, and how you came to be. So let's take it all the way back, dude. Let's rewind. Hit that rewind button. Tell everybody where you grew up.
Man, I grew up in a little city called La Puente.
Well, let's talk about La Puente a little bit. Did you go to high school out here?
I did. I went to Bassett High School.
Okay.
In the city of La Puente. Graduated in '97.
Okay.
Yeah, and I went to the plan was to go to a 4-year college, and then take off, doing something in business is what I wanted. And then things kind of changed. I had a baby on the way, pretty young. So I started off and I started going to community college, and then I went to a 4-year, and I'm about 4 classes away from completing my bachelor's. This is over 25 years later. But hey, we're here and we're almost done. So that's slow progress, but it's still progress nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly, dog. Exactly. All right, let's take it back, man. We're about the same age. I graduated in '96. You graduated in '97. So we know what it was like back in the day, man. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly about growing up in La Puente.
See, the good is it's a small community. Even though it's in LA, it's a small little town. So it has a small town vibe. Everybody knows each other, but you're in the midst of this, large, bigger thing that represents it. And everybody that is from LA and moves to another town will tell you that the concept of LA is everything pretty much in Southern California. It's like San Diego, LA, and then the rest of California, the Bay maybe.
Right.
So, when you tell people you're from La Puente, they don't know where that is. They're like, where is that? And it's like, okay, well, it's 20 minutes from LA. Oh, okay, so it's LA. So then you just end up telling everybody you're from LA eventually.
Exactly.
Because you get tired of explaining where La Puente is, or where Whittier is, or where Montebello is, or El Monte, or what, Baldwin Park. No one knows where those little cities are. So the good was, it's a small community, and everybody knows each other. Everybody, supports each other. There's a lot of good community involvement going on. The bad is that, there was a lot of gang activity when we were growing up. So that was not good. There was a lot of, people that I knew growing up that are no longer with us, that passed away due to that gang violence and, drug violence and things like that. But that was like the real bad thing of growing up in that area. But, when you're that young, you don't really know how crazy things are until you kind of move out. You don't really know how dangerous things could have been until you kind of compare your life to those that didn't grow up in that kind of environment. So, growing up, it was all good. I didn't know exactly what kind of situations I was putting myself in. But turns out that, could have been, there could have been a lot of wrong turns at different points in my life growing up. So that was the bad, definitely. But, even though that seems bad and I can call that bad, you can still draw learning lessons and life lessons from that. So in the end, I mean, it's all good. Like everybody says, it's all good in the hood. So there's a lot of, street knowledge that you learn when you're growing up in that environment. So, I can't say that I regret any of it or have been negatively affected by it in any way. But, that's kind of like a real brief summary of the good and the bad.
Growing up in the 90s was an animal in itself, like you mentioned. I mean, LA was on fire. It was a war zone, unfortunately.
Right.
What was one of the biggest life lessons that you think you learned as an individual growing up in Los Angeles County in the 90s?
Biggest life lesson? That's a great question. You know what? One of the things that I reflect on a lot was that I never really encountered racism when I was growing up. I grew up in a primarily Hispanic neighborhood. A lot of Mexican Americans lived in that neighborhood. A lot of people of color, very few white people. But I never really encountered peer-to-peer racism until I moved out of the city. So I think we all can recount certain instances where we saw racism from like authority figures, like teachers or, police officers and people that had like some kind of control over the situation. So I definitely felt that growing up, being pulled over. I had a shaved head and drove a drop, little Honda Accord. So, all my friends had shaved heads. Even though we weren't gang affiliated, we looked like little gangsters and, in the eyes of, anyone older and more mature. So we get messed with a lot. So that was a common thing, but peer-to-peer racism, I didn't feel until I moved out of the city. So a life lesson that I learned was you have to learn how to really keep your cool and use a calm perspective when you're dealing with people that are from different backgrounds that aren't really don't have a real education on how to deal with people from other backgrounds and other people of color and other cultures, and they're kind of one-sided in their views and they don't have a real diverse experience to draw from. So I'm definitely thankful that I grew up around people of color, and I think one of the life lessons that the neighborhood taught me was that it's okay to be different.
What was your upbringing like? Was your mom around, dad around?
Yeah, so both my parents were around. I was the youngest of 8.
Damn.
So yeah, I was the youngest of 8, and but both my parents were around. My dad was a hard worker. He was a meat cutter. He retired as a meat cutter from the union, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was also a hustler. Though she would cater on the side. She would make buñuelos, and she would make tamales, and whatever you wanted her to make, she'd make it, and put it on platters and ship it off to your party. So she was always selling something, man. That's where I got my hustle from. So anyone that knows me knows that I'm always selling something. I always got something going on the side. So that definitely comes from my mom. My dad was a hard worker, and he would tell us, it didn't really stick. And I can get into this later, but it didn't really stick when he would tell me, like, he would tell me in Spanish, que trabajan los burros, which means like let the donkeys work. So he was trying to tell me, go to school, don't go out and work a 9 to 5. Like, be something else, be something other than what I am. But he was a man of few words, so it was hard for him to really articulate that to his kids. So I didn't end up following his advice till way later in life. And but yeah, he was a man of very few words, but he was a good dad nonetheless. He worked hard for his family, and he set a good example for his kids. So yeah.
So what's up, dude? Are they from Mexico?
Yeah, they're from Sonora, Mexico. So
okay.
They came over here when they were real young. So that my first the eldest sibling, my sister Alvia, she was born in Mexico. She was the only one born in Mexico, and she is 63 right now. So they brought her over as a baby. So my mom's been in the United States for a good over 60 years. Yeah, and they've been in that house since the mid 70s.
I'm doing the math now. You graduated in 97, which means you're about 46, 45, 46.
I'm 43, going to turn 44
shit. Okay, I'm off then. Oh, yeah, 97. So you're younger than me. Oh, my bad. Yeah. So, okay, so you're like my wife, man. My wife has her next sibling next to her is 19 years apart from her. Your sister's
Wow,
63. You're young. You said the oldest is 63 and you're 47. Okay, so that's a big difference. Did you have a relationship with her?
Yeah, 20-year gap. So my eldest sister, unfortunately, she fell off her bike when she was very little, very young, like 8 years old. So she's handicapped, unfortunately.
Okay.
But she still has a very funny personality. She still speaks, and she's more like has maybe a mentality of like a 9-year-old, I would say. But she still has a very bubbly personality, and yeah, we do have a relationship. My second eldest sister, Grace, she's like the one that runs the family. She's pretty much the second mom to the entire family. So we're blessed with her. And then my other brothers and sisters, yeah, we all have pretty good relationships and still talk and get together whenever we can.
That's dope, dude. What were some of the hardships about growing up in a home with 7 other siblings?
Man, I think really like since the gaps were kind of large in between the older siblings. The closest one to me is 5 years apart. So by the time I came around, it was more like I was the only child. Like I still had a little bit of guidance from them and a relationship when I was young, but it seemed like my parents were kind of wore out by the time I came around. So I pretty much did what I wanted to do and gave them kind of a hard time growing up. Gave them hell. Worried my mom a lot doing the things that I was doing growing up. But yeah, I think the hardship was more like a little bit more isolated than what you would think growing up in a family of 8 would be. A lot of them had moved out by the time I was growing up. So one of my sisters went to the military, to the Marines, so she was out pretty young. But yeah, man, it was, I think overall it was a little bit more isolated than what you would think growing up in a family of 8 siblings.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What were some of the things a young Louie was doing that worried his parents?
Oh man, just partying, dude. I was partying since I was like, back then the party crews are happening.
Remember the magazines where you wear the hat? Everybody had their hat with their logo on it,
Yeah,
Latin
exactly.
Rebels and whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So I was doing all that, and then just partying, staying out late, worrying my mom, drinking, doing all kinds of stuff I shouldn't have been doing. But yeah, so that was a big thing. So in Mexican families, that mom guilt, man, that mom guilt will get you. So it was like since I wasn't being the best son I could be, as far as like obeying my mom's wishes, I always had that mom guilt going like my entire childhood. I thought she was gonna have a heart attack because that's when Mexican moms say, "You're gonna give me a heart attack. You're gonna kill me. I'm gonna die of worry and all this stuff." So yeah, I felt a lot of that growing up, and then but I found love pretty young, and I moved in with my lady pretty quick, and then we started a family very young. So I think I benefited the most from that. I think moving away from the city and into a small conservative town alone with my family, I think that was like the pivotal moment in my life that sent it on a different direction, towards a positive, in a positive way.